chassis here. All of the bakelite blocks, as I said earlier, have been restuffed. New safety caps, new electrolytics down here on a terminal board, completely disconnecting the positive and negative terminals of both of the original, the big guys on top here, replaced with equivalent 8 microfarad 450 volt caps. And I also got the tone control put back together with new capacitors in there too. Got a new piece of wire hooked up that's not crumbling. And the next thing I want to do is deal with the rubber grommets that hold the tuning condenser in place. They are dry rotted, and the whole tuning tub just kind of flops around on the chassis, and that's no good. Trouble is getting it out isn't super easy because they use two of the screw heads as common ground points. Mostly because you need to ground the tuning condenser in order to get that half the circuit to work. So in order to get those off, I'm going to try using my soldering gun here. And oh yeah, replaced all the added tolerance resistors. I checked all these guys up here versus the color code meter. They're all good. Alright, we're going to see if we can at least get this to melt. Tad bit of a problem. Yeah. I was afraid of that. The original grommets were just a little bit taller than the ones that I'm using right now. So, despite my best intentions, what I actually have now is a tuning condenser that's even, well, probably no tighter than it was when it had the original grommets in it. Which is just fan-freaking-tastic. Unfortunately, I really wanted to avoid having to order replacement parts, but I may not have an option now. So we're back with the Philco Model 70 Cathedral, and with the chassis effectively wrapped up, barring the installation of the new dial, which has just arrived, I'm turning my attention to the grill cloth. A lot of radios out there wind up with, I don't know, a cat scratching it, kids poking holes in the grill cloth. Stuff happens. So naturally you'd want to get that replaced. Well, short of having someone taking it to the dealer and hopefully having them get an original piece to repair it with, these days we don't have that option. There are plenty of companies that reproduce graphics. I use Radio Days personally because they have a pretty good selection, but there are a lot of patterns that simply aren't manufactured, and so you kind of just have to wing it. And back in the day, if you poked a hole in the grill cloth and it was destroyed that badly, you wind up with something like this, where someone says, well, I've got a section of fabric material. Sometimes you can see curtains or drapes or whatever just sliced up and used for this sort of thing, and you wind up with hideous stuff like this. This was someone's best attempt at it. It doesn't look bad. They at least got it relatively straight across, and once you put it in there, you don't see the edges or anything, but I mean, it's just a cheap piece of material that they had laying around that they stuck in the thing. And then of course you have a cardboard backer with the 4 holes there, and this is simply glued onto that surface, and then the whole thing slides onto 4 screws, and then the speaker captures this whole assembly into it. It's not stapled into the cabinet or nailed or glued or anything, which is great because it means you can easily take it out and replace the grill cloth if it gets replaced by Grandma. So the replacement that I have that was listed on Radio Days' website as being appropriate for Philco 70 and Model 90 cathedrals is not an absolutely identical to the original pattern, but it is, I think, a nice facsimile. It's a rather beautiful gold weave color that we have here. The light is really not helping with that, but I think it does a pretty good job. This will look a whole world better than that. So the idea here is we'll get this lined up reasonably well over the surface of this, and then we'll go ahead and we'll spray this whole thing down with good old Scotch Super 77 spray adhesive. I've used this all sorts of different grill cloth. The only trick with this stuff is that it gets tacky really, really fast. So as soon as you spray this on the surface, you got to go like hell. Otherwise, it's going to harden back up, and you're going to have one corner that sticks, and then you can't stretch the rest of it out to even it out. It'll be wrinkly, and yeah. So I'm probably not going to do that on camera because it requires a little more patience than I have when the camera is running. So the surface doesn't look that bad. A little bit of the top paper did peel off when I pulled the original. Now thankfully the glue that they used to stick it back on there was really weak, and it just pulled straight off. It didn't require any effort whatsoever. I have considered trying to use like staples or something, but because this is cardboard and it's not a thin piece of wood like some speaker cloth backers are, I'm just going to have to stick to gluing it and hope that I can do this whole thing in one shot. Because I've only got the one piece of material. If I screw this up now, yeah, not good. But it looks like we should be able to get this stretched out reasonably nicely and fix it on there. And actually, one other thing I could try to do is to apply glue on this side, lay the cloth down like this, get it good and flat, and then actually line this up at the bottom where it's reasonably square, and then press it down, and that would probably get it the way I would want it. I'm used to stretching the material over the surface and applying it to try and get it straight, but yeah, I suppose whatever works. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, and hopefully when I bring this back, it'll be trimmed and glued and look nice. And just like that, we have it all together. It was a little bit tricky in the beginning. I actually wound up having to peel it off and re-adhere it to get it in just the right spot that I wanted to, but I've got it all trimmed out, and most importantly, I have the 4 screw holes punched through the material. You don't want to try sticking this on there without first doing that, because there's a good chance it'll grab on the fabric and suck it in, and it may actually screw up all your work. So to actually get these in here without damaging the surrounding material, what I did was I used a very, very sharp knife here, and I located the holes on the back by just running my thumb or forefinger over until I found the depression where each of one of them is, and then I gently pressed in with the tip, and I kind of produced an X shape over the top of it, a small puncture, and then I used the smooth end of this round file here to gently get into that hole, break up any fibers that are in the area, and then gently push through until it's the right size. I didn't want to use this side because this grabs onto those fibers pretty easily and pulls them out and makes a mess. So now we have our 4 good holes in there, and now we need to see what this looks like installed in the cabinet. I'm excited for that. So I apologize for the bad lighting, but trying to pick this new grill cloth color up on this camera is just not working out with whatever light source I have available. But this one is soft enough, I think, so that it won't reflect off the finish of the wood here. And if we hold up what was originally on it, yeah, I'd say that's a heck of a lot better. I did have some trouble getting this upper screw hole to pass through the fabric. It caught on a thread and tried pulling the corner in a little bit, but I got that dealt with. And yeah, now we can move on to sticking the speaker back into it. And then I just need to make a run to the hardware store and get the parts I need to assemble the new dial. So let's get on with that. Well, I tell you what, that was a pretty snappy and easy installation. It's a nice reproduction they've got going there. Centered up easily. I was able to use a hemostat here to hold the nut at the back while I got each of the screws in place, and then once I had them all centered, went back and tightened them up. And it fits nice. Now, one thing I do want to point out is while the reproduction is flat from the company that makes them, once you actually screw it down to the wheel here, it takes on that concave shape. So it molds itself nicely to how the original was. That way when it actually fits in there, it won't crush against the escutcheon. It won't be sticking up straight and down, and it fits nicely up against this little guy here, which is the diffuser that produces a little line on the dial. So the last step at this point is to install the new power cord and then put this whole thing together and see what it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and get the power cord ready and my soldering iron fired up, and then we get to have fun and install the chassis back into the cabinet. It's a bit of a tight fit even with that silly switch removed. I'm just going to do a quick test here with the new power cord, making sure I've got everything right. Rectifier has been pulled so we don't have high voltage on the set. I just want to make sure that everything looks okay. Yeah. It's a little hard to see on camera, sadly. Let me try and turn off the overhead. It didn't help a whole lot. But the point is that our dial here does actually have a noticeable line on there that is pointing at the station we want, which is exactly what we were hoping for. So that's good. And I don't know, maybe I can make this a little more obvious if I put, oh, I have a business card. Sometimes the light bleeds over from the top. If we just do that, no, it's simply too bright to pick up on there. Oh, well, you just have to trust me. There's a very thin arrow of light right there pointing at it. All our tube filaments have come up. That all looks good. So I think we'll leave it at that. And yeah, let's squeeze it back in the box. So we finally got it squeezed back into the cabinet. And just to recover what I've done to this set, all capacitors in this set have been replaced, save for any micas that might have been in it. All out-of-tolerance resistors have been replaced. Rectifier tube has been swapped out for a good one. New electrolytics, all that good stuff. Repaired some damage to the cord for the speaker connection. Replacement grill cloth, brand new dial, and all new rubber mounts for the tuning condenser tub and the four corners of the chassis, so this is now sitting at the correct height. If it isn't, you can tell because this will wobble around all over the place and you'll hear a thunking noise. And the height of the dial and the tuner, the shadow tuner, won't be completely in their little gaps there, which the camera seems to show. So I have not tested this yet, so I guess let's flip the switch, see what burns. Ooh, look at that, our shadow tuner came to life. Oh, I'm gonna have to turn off my overhead fluorescent here, I think. Yeah, that's obnoxious. All right, let's see if we can get anything. So tuning our tone control here.
There are many threads that run through our region. There are churches and schools and Little League teams that bring us together and bind us.
Here's Doc. 175 teams now, quarter mile 225.
Tapestry.
I got to do that.
Now, one thing that does help with this actually is a long wire antenna, so I'm going to go find one, hook it up to it, see if it improves our reception. Okay, so I've got the hunk of copper wire that came with the set hooked back up to the antenna terminal, but I do not have a ground connection hooked up. But I think as you'll see, we don't really seem to need that around here. There's not a lot of AM stations. Let's go ahead and turn this up, and we'll keep an eye on the shadow tuner up there.
Council. New message.
Department of the Social Security Administration. The reason of this call is to inform you that your Social Security number has been suspended. We're talking about a 12-year high of apprehensions.
It's very clear on the border trying to do something about this border crisis that we're seeing right now.
Look, people, maybe... And utterly without brain function. You're up against a gate. You're punching in the key code. You're paying attention to that. That might be a warning to anybody who's in that kind of situation. That's a place where a carjacker might get after you.
Yeah. So I think that was pretty good. I really hope the customer is happy with this set since he retrieved it from the garbage, but I gotta say I'm fairly impressed with how well this set works. I wasn't able to do an alignment on this. I would have liked to. The problem is Philcos from this era use a really goofy hex-shaped non-conductive tool to adjust all the trimmers in it, and I don't have one of those. That being said, it does seem to work just fine, picking up stations across the band relatively easily. So I think for the most part this is going to be a decorative piece, but I do hope that he listens to it because I find it enjoyable too. I am going to take a look though, because it seems as if the tuning meter isn't centered. It's a little off looking to me. I'll take a look at that, but it may simply be the angle which the light bulb's hitting it or something. But that's it for the Philco Model 71. These are fantastically collectible sets. They're very well built. You can get by the whole having to melt tar out of the capacitor blocks to restuff them. They're great pieces to have, and I think anyone that collects Hittig radios really needs to have at least one Cathedral set, and at the very least one Philco Cathedral set, because they're the ones that really made it popular. I mean, it all sort of started out as a cost-saving measure, using one piece of wood instead of three to make the cabinet shape, but Cathedral sets are among the most instantly recognizable of all radio types, and if you think of old radio, this is what you immediately think of. So, that's all for now. I'm not sure when I'm going to have another set ready to go. I'm going to be moving a whole bunch of stuff around here soon, so I may not have another project up for a month or so. But I promise I will keep updating the channel, and thank you for watching.